I was not good in class at all. I was getting kicked out of lessons all the time. I wanted to be able to like do something that I could do. And I felt like if I did something that no one else was doing at 14, you could kind of get yourself a competitive advantage.
Today on the Scale Up podcast, we meet Tom Holmes, founder of Tom's Trunks, talk about how he started their business at the age of 14, grew it to a 7-figure side hustle until he decided to work on the business full time.
Environmentally friendliness is not our USP. It is a must-have. I see it just as important as our tax return.
We're starting at 14, so 10 years. That's a really unique journey for somebody to go on and have the business come here today.
I actually felt like it enabled me to take much more risk. And I suddenly just thought, what on earth am I doing? I've missed this because I've been absolutely knackered. Like I was falling asleep whilst driving. 2021, business is booming. We're growing at like 200% a year. We never had any HR issues when Tom's Trunks was small. But when you're in a big business, you see this stuff all the time. You're like, oh my goodness, the responsibility on the employer is crazy. I made a mistake on my VAT bill, and the fine was double my salary.
So Tom, thanks for joining us here today. Really excited to get into the background and understand a bit more of the journey you've been on. But let's start off. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
So my name's Tom. I'm the founder of Tom's Trunks, a brand that I started when I was 14. I must admit, I never ever thought it'd be my dream job at age 24. I'm now 24 and I run a clothing brand and we specialize in making the world's most comfy stripy trousers.
And also one of the most passionate people I know about product and the quality and the sustainability. When we're down in the pop-up shop and you're talking about hemp, genuinely, I was intrigued and wanted to buy some. So let's just go back to kind of 14 years old, the early days. Was this the first business venture that you went into? Was there other stuff that you were doing before Tom's Trunks? Because that's a really young age to start even thinking about owning your own business or starting your own business.
I think a lot of people always think that it was the same size when I was 14. It really wasn't. So initially when I was age 14, it was very much just a way of like, I would just do anything to make money. So when I was like 12, I used to make Christmas trees out of driftwood, which I'd pick up off the beach, drill holes in and sell them. The highest profit margin product I've ever made. But that really like started this foundation of like, just love the idea of making something out of nothing into something. And then, so it wasn't my first venture, but it was probably the first one which I like got really stuck with and got serious with.
Where does that passion come from? So the passion of making and money, what came first? Was it making stuff to make money or just the passion for making stuff?
I think it's definitely a passion for making stuff. Like I quite like just trying to be or do something different. I think it stems from always being very like resourceful as like during like my childhood. So I'm one of 3, I've got 3 sisters and we like lived in the countryside. So like you had to kind of make your fun out of the like natural environment. So that kind of passion came from that if you're actually going to do something during the day, it's more fun to like make something. And that was kind of where it all stemmed from. And I think I'm from a pretty entrepreneurial family. So my mum is a pretty like hard grafter. She's a nurse. She's not like an entrepreneur, but she loves like being creative.
Yeah.
Always like, when it's like you got like World Book Day or whatever, should be the one that would like you make the world's wackiest outfit out of cardboard, like your Weetabix boxes and everything like that. So there was always very much like a creative vibe in our family.
Yeah. Okay. And what did your dad do? Your
dad does property. He's like kind of hardcore businessman, like hard-nosed kind of side of things, and then the mum's more creative.
So you're exposed to creativity, but also on the business side. And
exactly, yeah.
How much is it a natural encouragement from themselves, or was it kind of, right, Tom, from your dad's side, here's the business, your mum's side, the creativity, or was it quite a natural progression for you into entrepreneurship?
I think because I was around it, I saw it as an opportunity. I really see that as a big thing that now I try and promote, is that it's actually a lot more achievable than people think. And I'd always just seen my dad like work his socks off, but I was like, oh, well, if I work my socks off, I might be able to do something. So that was kind of the progression of it. I also was really competitive. Like I wanted to do something different. I wasn't good at sport. I was not good in class at all. I was getting kicked out of lessons all the time. I wanted to be able to like do something that I could do. And I felt like if I did something that no one else was doing at 14, you could kind of get yourself a competitive advantage. So I think that was really the spark
Yeah.
that got me going.
Wanting to stand out from the crowd and put a stamp on your own. So where did the idea come from? So obviously age 14, where did the ideas for Tom's Trunks come from?
So at the time, my dad was actually working with a charity in Africa, and we went out to visit him over Christmas holidays, and I bought some shorts because being 14, I was pretty disorganized, and I forgot to bring shorts. Didn't realize that in Kenya it is pretty toasty. So I had to buy some shorts on the beach. Literally, my dad said, like, here's some money, go down the beach and buy some shorts. So I went and bought these bright red stripy shorts. And my dad was like, what on earth have you just bought here? But I absolutely love them. And I just wore them all the time. And I mean, I would say like I'm kind of like I'm 24, so like our whole language is all just on social media. So I remember posting a picture on my Snapchat story being like, look at these shorts. And a couple of my friends were, oh, can you get me some? And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go and get some more shorts. And that's kind of was what inspired me, is I thought these were completely weird. No one else would want them. But a couple of my friends wanted them. And that kind of sparked the interest. And then I wore them all holiday. And my dad just kept on calling them Tommy's Trunks. Just because he was like, well, it's
Attached to them,
like,
yeah.
literally, I just didn't wear anything else, partly because I didn't have any other shorts. But that was kind of the first ever product. And there was nothing that unique, creative. It was very much, I bought something, saw it, loved it, wore it all the time. And that was the first ever start of it. And just people, like, in essence, I didn't even come up with the name myself. My dad literally was like, Tommy's Trunks. But I just was like, oh, that works. It's memorable.
Yeah.
And that's where I went from, yeah.
Okay. And so your friends saying, bring me some back. Did you resell them? Did you give them as gifts? Kind of what was the plan? Or was it just, I'm going to buy some shorts for my friends because they're cool, they're comfy, they look good?
I think initially, I probably gave some people some for free, but most of them I did probably resell them and sell them. And I was also obsessed with brands. Like I was the kid that would go on eBay and try and find like fake Ralph Lauren shirts and buy them because I wanted to be seen in the Ralph Lauren shirt, but I didn't have enough money to buy a Ralph Lauren shirt. So I then also branded them up. So from the get-go, they were branded up as Tommy's Trunks, and I was sewing the labels in myself. And that was how it kind of started.
Let's take a step back from that. So you're 14 years old in Kenya. Where did you find these shorts? Was it just a seller from a shop? Kind of, how did you find these shorts? How did you start sourcing them?
So there's a guy on the beach called John, and I literally just walked up the beach and went and bought them.
Yeah.
As simple as that. But then I got his WhatsApp, and I was like, oh, I need to make sure I keep this contact. I thought he was a really nice guy. So I added him on WhatsApp and started messaging him. And then I was able to buy the product directly from him. And initially I was bringing them over. So like go fast forward 2 months, we go, well, I'm already selling some, but these are minimal quantities. I'm getting my dad to bring them over in his suitcase. And then I'm getting other people from the charity to bring them over in their suitcase. Totally illegal. Like I'm not paying any import duty, no customs. Then I'm sewing a label on in my bedroom, literally, putting them in a package, and then selling them through. Even I was like knocking on people's doors in our village trying to sell them pajamas around Christmas time. Like it was complete. Like I think most people just felt sorry for me. They saw this 14-year-old guy in the winter come in, showing them stripy trousers and going, do you want to buy some? And that was essentially the foundation of it.
And so when you approached John, so you're 14-year-old, approached John on the beach, want to buy some shorts, these are great, I want to buy some more. How much convincing did he need that it's worth doing business with a 14-year-old? Was it quite organic? Was he just saw the passion that you had with the product? How much convincing did John take to become your supplier?
I think, interestingly, it wasn't like him that we needed to convince because we were paying up front, so buying up front. It was then when we went over to like the next level where we started manufacturing our own stuff. That is where I then created this like kind of false identity online. So one of our like suppliers I've been working with for now 7 years, he's only actually seen my real face for the past 2 years because I was worried that he would think I'd be too young and wouldn't trust me. And he was honestly amazed when I like FaceTime. I was like, this is actually me. I had like a fake like my icon on WhatsApp and email was all like this facade.
And how much in hindsight, you looking back at it now, was that in your own head? Or do you think there's born out of some truth that if you're too young, people won't take you seriously?
I definitely think there is a thought that there's a shift now that is changing, but I think people do definitely think if you're too young, you either don't deserve it, so you've been put on like kind of a pedestal, or you've had some sort of backup, or you're not trustworthy. You're gonna make like it's a high risk approach, and I think rightly so as well. Like, you know, if you are a supplier and you're dealing with a 14-year-old versus dealing with a 35-year-old or a 50-year-old who's got loads of experience, you're going to expect that 50-year-old to be able to deliver and keep to their word. And I always say, like, I'm very thankful for our suppliers who kind of trusted me, because there was no reason to trust me. So I think it was in my head, but it was also real. Like, hopefully that's answered the question.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. But actually, I think there's a bit of people recognizing talent as well. So I'd probably agree with you actually in some regards, but there is a riskier side of working with someone younger, but actually they also bring a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and a lot of preconceptions of how stuff could be done. And that's normally how you can build the best kind of businesses, by not thinking around, right, this is historically how people have done things, but actually there's a new way, there's a fresh way of doing it. Just kind of taking us back, actually 14 years old, you're going around the village, you're knocking on doors, you're selling your shorts, you're selling your trousers. Kind of what happened from that kind of stage, 14, you're still at school. How did you balance between the passion of Tommy's trunks at this time to having to balance school, you're coming into your GCSEs around that kind of time? Kind of talk around how you managed to balance both work and, or doing the business and then school as well.
So for me, the business made school relevant. So I suddenly realised that if I was able to, I genuinely, at age 14, I was awful at spelling. I couldn't do anything. I was really struggled to type, all that kind of stuff. Doing the business made me realise, look, if I can do this quicker, I can grow the business faster. So suddenly, from going to this point of being kicked out of classes, being honestly, like, I was always the class clown, always like trying to do things to get attention, to then suddenly thinking, you know what, if I actually focus in on this, this could benefit me and the business. So suddenly I kind of locked in, and I now use this approach a lot when I'm older, and saying the busier you are, sometimes the more efficient you are. Like, I found I was dotting around, doom scrolling beforehand, and then suddenly you don't have time to doom scroll, so you've got to focus in on it. I definitely did affect classes. Like, classes I didn't enjoy, I would sit on my laptop, and I managed to wangle in getting, because I was dyslexic, I managed to wangle in enabling the teachers to let me have my laptop in my class, which meant I could build my website during lessons. But obviously the grades do reflect that I was building a website during that. But it was kind of, it was hard to manage, but I just was like, I'm just going to hustle through this. I was loving it so much, and I loved the journey. I was just like, don't mind. I don't mind if I've got to wake up early. And I've never been into like gaming or anything like that. So most of my friends, whilst they're playing like COD, I'd be like doing a website or trying to do some schoolwork. So yeah.
And talk to those early day components of building that business. Obviously, building the website. What else were you working on back then to try and get the brand off the ground?
So one of the things that I spent a lot of time on was our like initial marketing. We had no money for ad spend, so I was like, right, how are we gonna sell the product? So I created this strategy where we had like an ambassador program, and I would essentially message people on Instagram and say, look, I'll give you this code. You'll get 10% of every sale, but you need to promote that code to your people and get the product going. And I was basically building spreadsheets. In a sense now, looking back, it's probably semi like pyramid selling, but it wasn't. It was affiliate selling, really. And that, I spent a lot of time like learning how to do that. And I would sit on YouTube videos and watch people how to do it. So I have a lot of like credit to YouTube. I love YouTube. Like, I would sit and mimic exactly how to do things. And we don't use any agencies still to this day for web development or anything like that. We will use YouTube, sit on a video and just learn how to do it. And I actually found it's the best way, because you're like the forefront of the technology. And
so you're talking about kind of self-learning as well, using YouTube as a tool to upskill yourself in kind of new ideas, rather than relying on kind of agencies to bring in the expertise. I mean, that affiliate side, I mean, how common was that? It was just kind of, what period of time we're talking about?
This was in around 2016 to 2017.
Okay.
I'd say it was pretty common. It was also the time that your likes of Gymshark were like blowing up, really. And I mean, so I was working on affiliate marketing, so building spreadsheets and finding people. I built a bot on Depop to mass follow people. I don't know if people are familiar with Depop, but Depop's like a reselling platform. But it was pretty fresh. It was pretty new. Loads of like our market were on it. So that would basically mass follow people and was a free way of just getting people just to see the name. Yeah. And initially all of our selling was done on Depop. The website we had, you had to send an email, and then I would send you an email asking for your address and my bank details.
Yeah.
You would then bank transfer me the £22, whatever it was. I would then go and write out the label, take it to the post office and post it. Like, it was completely, because I didn't want to pay I think it was like £3 extra a month to have the shop now feature on. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to pay the transaction fees. And also you're only able to get a PayPal account when you're 18. So I had to like try and work out ways of going around that as well.
I suppose I'll ask, how much did that hold you back from the age? Because there's a lot you can't sign up and there's a lot you can't do before the age of 18. And how did you overcome, or there's one example of how you overcome, but what other challenges did you come up against being under the age of 18 trying to start a business?
Right. So in the UK, you can't start a business until you're age 16. So we couldn't register until I was 16 as like with Companies House. Can't get a PayPal account until you're 18. So I did make a PayPal account because I realized that sending bank transfers is just not a sustainable method. The other thing is like driving, right? I didn't realize how important it was to be able to drive stuff and like just move stuff around. Like, you're constantly relying on either buses, trains. I mean, I've transported some really weird stuff on trains because I didn't have any like transport or anything like that.
You were bed on it.
Yeah, exactly. That's more recently, but we've done a lot of. I would literally just work out, or I'd try and plug favors. So I've got 2 older sisters, and I'd ask their friends, "Oh, can you drive this for me?" And like PayPal accounts, how do I get around that? My PayPal account is still registered in my dad's name, and I can't change it. So we now don't use PayPal because I'm worried that the funds are off and
the funds get too
exactly
too much in there.
But yeah, so there is a lot of limiting factors being 14 and starting a business, and I think we've just kind of chipped away and worked away ways of getting around it. But most of the stuff you can do, and you can work around ways of doing it.
And so, talk us through the size of the business while you were at school. Kind of, are you talking hundreds of thousands of turnover, tens of thousands of turnover? Kind of, what was the size of the business while you're running it while you're at school?
So whilst I was at school, like the final year of sixth form, the business was at around, I think it was like 250 grand turnover. So not crazy, but pretty big for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And I remember, the most vivid memory I have is in sixth form, the day before my geography A-level exam. My mum rings me and says, "There's someone at the house, you need to come back." And I'm like, "Look, I'm literally about to go into the exam hall." And it was some couriers from Tommy Hilfiger who basically were wanting to remove all of our stock.
Yeah.
Because we were supposedly a trademark infringement.
Okay.
And that's when we had to like relabel everything. So I remember suddenly thinking, I've got this business and it's like,
and I've got Tommy Hilfiger
Hilfiger getting annoyed at me. And I'm like, I'm trying to get a geography A-level here. And the teachers tell me I'm never going to pass this exam because I've been sat doing the website during the lessons. So I'm suddenly like weighing it up. So that was kind of like the scale of the business whilst I was at school.
And so what happened that night? So Tommy Hilfiger's turned up, they're saying you're breaching some trademark infringement. Kind of, how did you feel? You're going into a geography exam, 18 years old, you've got this global brand now. Were they threatening to take you to court? Kind of what was the situation there?
I think, in hindsight, they were just being the big boy. So they weren't even threatening to take us to court. They were just saying it's trademark infringement. You have to relabel it, everything, because obviously it's a big cost for them as well to take us to court. And they probably knew we weren't going to be spending that kind of money. So they essentially just sent loads of aggressive letters and then sent people to the house saying, because I never responded to the letters to say, right, you need to change the names. And at that time, I was just like, we're just going to change the name. But they were just a hardcore approach, constant calls saying like, you need to do it. It was like a debt collector, but for a trademark.
Trademark. And so you then rebranded them to Tom's Trunks off the back of that situation, Tommy Hilfiger.
Yeah.
How much in hindsight, obviously being a bit older now and knowing actually they probably were just throwing their weight around, there's no actual trademark infringement, would you make the same decision now, or would you make a slightly different decision, or was it quite an organic change from Tommy's Trunks to Tom's Trunks?
I think it was quite a good change, if I'm honest. It was as the brand grew up, Tommy's versus Tom's, as it seems a bit older, seems a bit more mature. I also think it's easier to type. Sometimes when you're dealing with suppliers or trying to say something over the phone, Tommy's Trunks is harder to spell. It just is like shorter. It's just easier for people to search stuff. So I kind of see it as a bonus, but I really did not see it at that point. I remember when I was like 18, I was so gutted. I was like, why is this big person worrying about us? Like we're just trying to do something, make comfy trousers with no impact on the planet and do the right thing. And these guys are just throwing their weight around. And it was expensive.
Yeah.
You know, we had to relabel stock, redo the website. And because of all our stuff was organic, changing things like SEO, it's just another job to do, right? And there was no one like I could delegate that job. That was my job to do that. So it was just things like that I found so frustrating. But I suppose I just learned how to do it and crack on with it.
Yeah.
I think that's just the way of business, really.
Yeah, and that seems to be the theme of you just talking around. Actually, it's a lot of you just rolling up your sleeves, getting involved. There's a job to go and do. I'm going to teach myself how to do that. What support did you have at that time in the business? So you're 18 years old. Were you still doing everything, all the SEO, all the packing of products, stitching on labels? Kind of how all-encompassing was it versus how much support were you getting at that time?
I would just do everything. I loved it. I genuinely loved it. I mean, later down the line, I started stop packing orders, and there was a lady in the village who was an absolute gem. I'd pay her per order because when you're doing 30 orders or less than 30 orders, it's really hard to like say, right, I need an employee.
Yeah.
So I basically found this lady in the village, and she would just pay per parcel and pay per return, and she would come to my living room and pack them just because I couldn't balance it with doing it at the school at the same time. But things like SEO and stuff like that, I would do myself, or I'd ask a friend. So I'd say, look, I'll give you 20 quid to sort it out. And it would just be like, I had this kind of like internal network of Fiverr of people in the classes that would do stuff.
And 18 years old, come to the end of your time at school. When school finished, did you go into the business full time? What was your next step after you finished school?
So after school, I really wanted to go into the business full time, but I didn't necessarily feel that I was that experienced at business. So I actually applied. I think it was my grandpa said, "Oh, you should do an apprenticeship." I was like, all right, I'll follow after you, boss. And then so I signed up to an apprenticeship with Morrison Supermarkets, and it was their business management apprenticeship. And I thought, oh, this is brilliant. And I remember I thought business management, suit and tie. So I bought a suit and tie, and I went there for the first day, and it was in a factory in Derby. And I was wearing the suit and tie, and then they're like, I was like, "Where's my office?" And they're like, "No, you're on the line." And so that was my first experience. And so for 4.5 years, I worked for Morrison's in Derby and then in Spalding, and I absolutely loved it. Learned so much. But again, the business is still there, so I'm then managing, and this is when I had this like tagline of like the 7-figure side hustle, because suddenly this is like around COVID time as well. Our business is loungewear. Loungewear is blowing up, and I'm working 12-hour shifts in this factory, learning so much. But meanwhile, my business is really growing, and I'm having to like balance it. And this is when I found it really, really hard.
And how much of that time at Morrison's have you taken then and applied to the business? Again, looking back now with the ability of hindsight, was that 4 years better spent at Morrison's having the business on the side rather than working in the business and actually understanding a broader understanding? Or do you wish you'd gone straight into the business after school and had a 4-year head start potentially on growing?
No one's ever asked me that question. And really, really good question. I think I learned a lot at Morrison's. 3 things that I found is when you work for a big business, it scares you about business because the volume that they're dealing with, HR issues. We never had any HR issues when Tom's Trunks was small. But when you're in a big business, you see this stuff all the time. You're like, oh my goodness, the responsibility on the employer is crazy. So that, in a sense, actually terrified me about employing people, which I think has held the business back slightly. But that being said, I had no idea how to manage people. So I think as the business has scaled, I really respect now a lot of my bosses at Morrison's, how amazing they were at leaders and like the strengths that they were dealing with. I think when you're the only accountable person, it's quite easy to run a business. Like if it's at a small scale where you're responsible for everything, you can do it. You can control how many sales you're getting, how much volume. Suddenly you've got a team, the pressure is a lot worse. And I felt like the work that I did at Morrison's, that enabled me to deal with that pressure so much. The time facts though, I don't know. You know, now looking back on it, I actually think because I had a full-time job, I was able to take a lot more risk.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time when the business needed some investment and I had a full-time salary. So I was like, right, I'm going to put all my salary into the job, into the business. And it paid off. I don't think I'd have been able to do that if I was working full-time. I've only needed to start taking a salary from our business in the last 2 years. So from a financial perspective, it was really worthwhile.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Hard answer is, I think it was the right thing to do. And I learned a lot about dealing with people.
Because it's a really interesting story, actually, because a lot of people say about you need to prove you're all in on the business, go and work on it night and day, and that shows that you're committed to success. But actually, you taking a step and going and getting a job to upskill yourself before going back into the business actually probably gave it a better chance of success, which is a different way around. I think a lot of people that are looking to get into business entrepreneurship are coached and told to go in the direction of go all in. That's what you need to go and do. Go all in, and that's how it's going to be successful. But actually taking a more measured and balanced approach is probably benefited the business more because you come with more expertise and have managed to support it through a period of time. Particularly when you're young, money's really important. Going out, being able to have a good time and having some money is important. Without that, that can be quite soul destroying and actually might push off your path. But actually, listen to what you said there. It probably has given the business a better chance of success by you taking that route.
Yeah, I think definitely. And also, there's this glamorous side, like there's this like kind of really ballsy side of people going, oh, just quit everything, go and show that you're all in. But I've recently been thinking like about risk. I think risk is kind of over glorified. You listen to a lot of these like, I don't know, YouTubes or Instagram reels where they're like hyping up this risk element. But I do think it's about calculated risk. Like now with tech, you don't need to work certain hours. So if you can do your work from kind of, I kind of always said a 5 to 9 and then a 9 to 5. If you can do it after work, then your risk is really controlled. You're still taking a risk because you're starting something else and it can still fail. But at least you've got the backup plan. So yeah, I actually felt like it enabled me to take much more risk.
So working in Morrison's on the production line, supporting there, what was the point that you decided to leave Morrison's and go into the business full time?
It was a multitude of things. Probably the biggest turning point was, so that mentioned earlier, 2021, business is booming. We're growing at like 200% a year. And then I'm suddenly having to like manage staff or like a team of people. So initially I had my best friend working with me. He was at uni. He was doing like customer service on the side. Then we added some more people. We kept on just like bolting random freelance roles, 0-hour contract roles. And I would just be on my phone messaging people, right, you need to sort this, you need to sort that. But we never had anyone keeping control of accounts. And I was doing the accounts. And obviously once you go past the kind of like 85, I think it's 95 actually turnover, you need to be VAT registered. And I made a mistake on my VAT bill and the fine was double my salary. So it gives a scale of the point of revenue. And I suddenly just thought, what on earth am I doing? I've missed this because I've been absolutely knackered. Like I was falling asleep whilst driving because I was just so tired of like working 12 hours, then going back to work, managing people. I was knackered. So I just thought, right, I'm going to have to resign. But I felt a huge amount of loyalty towards Morrison's as well. They've like paid for my degree. They've paid for my training. So I kept on working for a bit and then I just had to call it quits. But that was the real turning point, was going, right, I've done this. I did all the qualifications. I've got all the, tick the boxes. I've now got to go full time.
And it was actually, from what you just said, driven by actually you recognising mistakes were happening in the business because you're split focus and actually it got to the size that actually you couldn't sustain working kind of two jobs. Talk to me, what size is that? Kind of you were 250,000 when you were 18 leaving school. 21 obviously had your kind of COVID boom. What was the size of the business when you decided to kind of step into it full time?
when I went full time into the business, I need to check the exact numbers because there'll be those fact checkers out there going on Company's House. The during COVID, I believe we just did just under £1 million revenue, and then the following year we did like 1.6, and then the following year we did 2.2. So I think it was around the £1 million mark.
And then talk us through kind of structurally how the business is set up. So you're using a lot of freelancers at that point, kind of manufacturing. How did you first source those suppliers? Take us through kind of that journey you went on when you were establishing that business.
So I think this is the thing that I found the hardest actually, is going from very small micro business to then small business, as I call it.
Yeah.
So the first question I had is, what people do I actually need? At the moment, I'm doing everything and I can't split it up into individual jobs because it's not enough of a full-time job there. So that's when we kind of brought in the freelance people, and they were friends. They were all friends that they would fill in a timesheet on Google Sheets and I'd pay them cash in hand. But then that suddenly wasn't working because they would be busy. They would have a uni deadline. The job doesn't get done. Customers are getting frustrated. So then I had to really come up with a structure, and this is what I found really challenging. Manufacturing was a first call. How are we going to get the product made? How are we going to ensure that it's good quality? And in 2017, I'd already started working with another supply partner. And this supply partner really had my back, as I'd say. I'm still great friends with him to this day. So he was based in Asia, and I would be doing all the ordering directly with him. And he said, look, the business is growing now, Tom. You need to give us a more of an annual plan of volume. So that was kind of first thing, is he was fundamental in the growth of the business, really, because he enabled us to get the supply side sorted. Then had customer service. Suddenly you're doing from 250k revenue to £1 to £2 million revenue. You've got slightly more customer inquiries. So we then built out a customer service kind of team. And I've always been in the approach as well, utilizing tech. And that's something that I found really hard as I've grown, is you could probably automate most roles now, but you still need someone responsible for it.
Yeah.
And that was the real challenge I had, is I couldn't be responsible for everything. So if I built out the AI system that was responding to all customer inquiries, I'm the one responsible for it. So that's where then we started actually automating things to create enough of a job for the person.
And so that's kind of born out of making sure that there is enough value from employing someone versus the automated systems that you bring into place, and actually not having it too heavily automated. The interesting, just going back to the supplier point. So as you said, you pivotal to helping the success of the business. How did you find the supplier? Where did that supplier come from?
So in 2017, we were manufacturing in Kenya, but we kept on having constant quality issues. And because we weren't designing our own stuff at that time, we were just importing, reselling, the designs would change. They'd be like, we ran out of the blue, so we've sent you the red. We can't scale a brand off that. So I said, right, in 2017, this was during my GCSEs, I was like, right, I'm going to focus in and get 2 products, a blue trouser and a white trouser, and we're going to manufacture them. We're going to change the stripe, change the weave, and we're going to manufacture our own fabric. And this is where I found this guy, and I literally was on Google. I Googled I messaged probably about 50 different suppliers, and he was the only one that responded. So, and that's the kind of challenge, when you're 16, if you haven't got a big company name, whatever, it's harder to do. And then ever since then, he's kind of says to me, he sees me as his son now, as in we work together. I help him, he helps me, and it kind of works really well.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of perseverance just to find that supplier, but once you found that connection, actually, it's really helped push the business forward. So you're thinking about the structure, you've kind of got the supply side, the customer service side, you've stepped out to go and work in Thomas Trucks full time. What other roles did you think were crucial to kind of getting this off the ground? Because it sounds like you've gone from straight down Morrison's to hiring a team. Is that how it started?
That's pretty much, yeah.
And so how did you decide on these early hires, and talk us through what that process looked like of bringing them into the business?
I think this is 100% the thing I have found most challenging. And I'd say, hopefully the team don't think I'm incorrect in saying this, but I think I've made some hiring failures. One thing is I've been too slow to hire. I've thought I can do everything, and they're never going to be good enough. But actually, sometimes you've got to let someone else do it, because they are going to be better than you. That is the reality. Is if you're trying to do everything, you're never going to be as good as someone that is just doing one thing. I've just found it really, really hard is initially, I'd say when I went to hire people, I wanted people that were just going to do what I asked. I felt like I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted someone to do what I asked. But we were in an area where we're in a rural village. The shed isn't the most appealing office. You're applying for a job. You don't really trust it. So I think the first thing I found when I'm trying to hire people is really building that trust element. But it's easy for me to say that because the business is bigger. If I go back to when it's a smaller business, we don't have that infrastructure. And I do think it's a genuine challenge for small businesses is to make yourself appear big or to make future employees and future talent really trust that you're going to pay their wages, give them a career of life or career for life and look after them.
And how did you overcome that in the early days? Did you recognise that as a challenge? That's just the challenge you recognised now for hiring. So how do you paint that vision? So I've got a business, million turnover, I need to start bringing people in. How do you paint that vision for new employees coming in? Or do you even need to? Do you just kind of get them in and let them try and figure out where this could go on their own? How important is it as part of trying to attract talent?
I think probably on reflection, it's about the talent you're trying to attract and what type of people you want. So some roles you need people that are going to look at that and go, oh yeah, I trust this for my job. Some other people, you need people that are willing to take the risk and go, look, you're coming on this journey. I think for me, it's about being more open in the whole interview process about this is where we are. I'm going to be honest. I struggle with this. Maybe I'm bad at time management, but I've hired you because you're great at time management. I think it was just a fear of not being transparent with people in the early days, which made those failures not work.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be completely transparent. I know what my weaknesses are. I'm going to hire for what I'm bad at. And painting that picture of the big business is you're going to have to trust me.
Yeah.
And I'll do everything I can, but I'm also going to expect everything from you. It's kind of the thing.
Oh, and so talk us through actually the mechanics of the business, because actually I think you've got a fantastic business that's growing really quickly. Kind of what was the elements that you've identified for those levers for growth to really kind of push this business to scale faster?
So fundamental one is marketing. And that's the bit I enjoy the most. So getting people that get me and want to work with me and enjoy the journey of it. We try and do pretty much 100% organic marketing. So doing adventures, doing trips, bringing our team on. We want people that want to get involved. It's not sitting behind laptops and doing like spreadsheets. We don't even at the moment care about attribution. We care just about doing stuff and content creation. So I see that as a major thing. That was a major element in our business. The other thing, though, I wish I'd done earlier is merchandising. So for those who are new to the apparel world, I had no idea. I'd been working in flowers, I knew about stock control, but not about merchandising and managing stock. That is something that is still a challenge today. I make constant mistakes on it, but it's so fundamental to any business. And I wish I'd hired someone to do that role earlier.
By merchandising, what do you mean?
Merchandising, so managing your stock and looking at trends and knowing what's going to be a hot seller. So for example, we released a dark navy trouser. Seems really obvious, but I didn't think that was going to sell that well in winter. Obviously dark colours sell well in winter, so it sold out. Then you've got no revenue coming in from that product. So just someone with that experience, and it's a specific role.
Yeah.
It's there. It's like a job description. Someone does training for it.
So you're talking about kind of stock planning, making sure that actually you've got enough stock to meet the demand that you're putting out into the world. So having someone dedicated, laser focused at looking at making sure your stock is coming in correctly is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And you said something really interesting on the marketing side, actually, that you guys lean more towards the brand, maybe the performance side. What kind of metrics do you look at from a marketing aspect to understand that actually this is working from a brand perspective versus this isn't working?
So we have an internal metric. Don't know whether it's the right thing, but I say it's all about cost per like. So I care about engagement. So this weekend, for example, we did a photo shoot and it, let's say, cost £2,000 to do the photo shoot. Models, location, photographer, etc. We'll then be aiming for a cost per like of 5p per like. And that is what I see as a good conversion on that spend. I find if we spend too much time, also we don't have the skill set in our team right now, to go and look at attribution of sale and all that stuff. You spend so much time doing that, you're not actually creating the stuff of getting revenue in.
Yeah.
So we're completely focused on outbound visuals, basically.
Yeah. And do you guys do much of the performance side, so kind of meta ads, PPC ads, or is it mainly brand and social activities?
We do some, especially around those like peak periods like Black Friday and stuff like that. We've actually just turned off all of our paid media as an experiment. I don't believe any of it. I think now, because ad blocking is so good, attribution is so varied, I think turning it off is a wrong decision to do, but it's more of like a tester. Like we do it, but not with much strategy.
How's that test on? So all paid ads now are off.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's so hard to tell because, it's based on stock availability, any like influencers, or how's your organic doing as well. So there's lots of variables. At the moment, it's working. We're still selling stuff, but it's short term. Also, on like paid media, it learns. There's a learning stage. So then if you completely turn it off like we've done, I think we might have not fully turned it off. I think I'm lying a little bit. We brought the budget down from, I think we were spending around £40,000 a month on paid meta ads to like £1,000 a month, just so that we keep our like balance there. But it's pretty much turning it off.
Yeah. This is that's typically from 40 down to 1.
Keep saying that. But the question was, how's it working, and I don't really know yet because it's only a couple of days in.
Okay,
but
so
I definitely prioritize brand strategy rather than pay per click. Also, it's about those multiple touch points as well. So it's how can you get as many touch points?
And what drives that philosophy of focusing on brand over performance marketing?
I think it's about what I want in the brand. I want to create a brand that people love and that people trust and is totally authentic. We obviously need to make money, but that is not the primary focus right now of the brand. The brand is about people having a long day of work and being able to put on a pair of our pajamas or lounge pants and they feel like they're a new person. That is what I'm focused on right now. I don't care how many we sell, as long as everyone or all of our customers are having that experience.
And how do you go around, that's a great vision, I think, to actually have that brand purpose. How do you go around creating that then in reality?
I think just keep pushing quality, keep pushing the brand content, work with people that we find inspiring as a team, and just work like that, and follow the gut and follow the heart, and make sure that we're focused on product. We're not too focused on being a big business or trying to be a big business. Keeping the basics. We make stripy trousers, so not losing that. Like that is at the moment where I see like the marketing core.
And so how big is, you talked about kind of early hires coming in, how big's the team now?
We now have 11 people in our team, 2 of whom are freelance. Well, they're part-time. They work for us, but they're part-time. So they're a customer service team. Best recommendation I'd ever have is get your customer service team as students, because they can just clock in and clock out whenever they need. So we have a system where they get paid when they're responding to tickets, and works really well. But everyone else is in the office, and we have a really big culture of in-office working all the time. With, if someone needs to have flexibility, they can, but that's our priority, is everyone all together.
And what's driven that culture? Because obviously there's a bit of a push-pull at the moment in the worker world of actually being flexible, in office, completely work from home. Why have you guys found that actually being in the office together has worked better for you?
I think because our team is young, I'd say we are a Gen Z team. If I'm honest, I'm a Gen Z as well. If I can scroll, I'll scroll. So kind of removing those distractions is really important for us as a team. I obviously trust our team, but I know my generation. Unless we're kind of like all together, inspire each other, the distractions are just too huge. I think in our older team members now, they work from home more, but the young team, like the direct current team, we're very much in office. The other thing is just a personal thing, distraction, as I mentioned earlier, and our growth rate. Last year we grew 119%. And this year we're aiming for 145%. To get that kind of growth, you can't just be doing what we did last year. You can't be doing the job. You'll be constantly having ideas. How are you going to get it to that next level? So I think it just harnesses an element of collaborative approach. And I want it to be a fun place to work. And it's fun with people.
Yeah.
Especially, something I found really hard during COVID is not being around other young people. So I now really feel I'm playing catch up and want to be around young people all the time.
Yeah. And I think it's, especially when you've got that growth rate, the balancing of ideas is crucial. And stress testing ideas to make sure that they're the right ones. I mean, how are you managing that kind of growth? Because that's really spiky to be going through year on year. How do you guys feel like you're managing it, or are you just letting the growth happen and you'll at some point stop and play catch up with maybe the systems and processes that need to be in place?
I feel like 2 years ago we made a big shift to Shopify, and Shopify is a great platform. Not that this is a Shopify ad, but just kind of happens, I don't really necessarily. We obviously plan for it and we build in capacity. We're definitely feeling the hurdles now more of that fast growth rate is keeping up, training people fast enough to actually keep up with the growth rate. Because I still say I'm patching up a lot of plasters myself, and as the business grows, I mean, there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah. And what are the hurdles? And stock was actually one that we were talking about.
Yeah.
What are the hurdles that you've seen as part of that fast growth?
Financial management really is important. Just because it's bigger and there's more revenue doesn't necessarily mean that you can go spending on a spending spree. I think when it gets bigger, the risk just gets bigger. So I remember looking at some data from this year. January is always a bit of a doom and gloom month. It's returns month, as I call it. And our returns in January was our revenue 2 years ago, like the cost of that. And it's just you have to factor all that stuff in and just making sure you're on it. I'm not saying we're in a bad financial state. No way are we in a bad financial state. But I found personal stress of making sure that you keep on it.
Yeah, the cash flow's so much larger, isn't it, at that size? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think we've got a big team culture of rewarding where we can. And then, you get all excited. You see these big revenue figures and you think you can go splash out and you can go give big bonuses and stuff. But actually, you've got to think long term.
Yeah. So interesting point actually around cash flow management as the business starts to scale.
Yeah.
That is a common trap that a lot of businesses fall into. The revenue's coming in, great. You're not thinking around paying suppliers in 90 days' time or the returns that are coming in January.
Yeah.
How have you managed to control that cash flow as the business has started to scale? Is it through good accountants? Is it through good financial rigor? What's the secret that you found? Or are you finding the secrets right now on the path forward?
I think, to anyone starting out, I love Xero accounting software. It's amazing. It's a specific software for it. If you let it do its thing, it is really, really good. And you use it like gospel and do it. The other thing is just accuracy. As the team's grown, I think for me as a founder, being constantly on the numbers is so important because everyone's trying to make their numbers look better. And you can easily manipulate numbers to make it, you look at gross sales rather than net sales or things like that so that your numbers look better. But it's just kind of constantly having an eager eye on it.
And do you build that into your kind of day-to-day? Is it like a daily morning ritual, cup of coffee and look at the numbers? Kind of how regularly are you checking on them?
So I base our whole ecom brand about a break-even point of number of orders. I look at orders every hour. I'm obsessed with it. I've got the notifications on my phone. I'm looking at it. I know if we're at a certain point, we're going to break even. And then if I know we're not breaking even and I know we're not broken even for a few days, I'm going to be reining in some costs and looking at where we can do it.
So it's daily order checking. You go, I need this amount of orders each day to break even based on the AOV of my orders. And that's kind of your North Star metric. You look at every single day, so it's in the right direction. It's really interesting. As you were talking around the team started to grow, what's your role turned into? Kind of what does your responsibility in the business look like now? Where have you kind of found that you're best spent your time?
Still learning that. At the moment, we are trying to recruit more and more people. So as mentioned, our team's quite inexperienced. We're now looking to bring in some more experience into our team. My day-to-day role, though, currently consists of managing the team. So I do head up all of our current operations and new product design. They're my two main roles. And I love the new product design side. I find the team management really challenging, but really rewarding. Like it's really fun to see people grow. And that's my day-to-day role.
And then kind of looking at what the business needs to do next. Hiring's been talking a lot about hiring and bringing people in. And actually, the impression that I'm getting is actually the importance you're placing on bringing in people and bringing in good people to take the brand to the next level. Kind of where do you think in the next kind of 2-3 years we need to start bringing out management structures within the current org? Do you think you're not going to get to that stage? Kind of, have you looked that far forward on where you think the hiring needs to be in the next couple of years?
Not really, I'll be honest. At the moment, I've actually had a bit of a redirection on our strategy. I think I was going a bit too far on like the hiring and big people and all this kind of stuff. I'm now looking into bringing a few very, very good people and utilizing tech again. Now that we've got a slightly bigger business, we can go back to like going, well, we could automate this, automate that, and focusing a lot on product, unique product that anyone can access. So I want to like focus on our kind of like 4 fundamentals of great quality, fair price, no impact on the planet, and uniqueness. And if I can focus on that, my role now, I want to be solely focused on product. And the team, that should follow, but that's not the priority. You know what I mean?
It's talking about the focus on product and sustainability being a huge area of focus for the business. Let's talk through the journey that you've been on there.
So product is the core of our brand and always will be. And sustainability has been in our brand from the very start. But now I don't love this word sustainability. My like 2 words that I really want to be looking into is resourcefulness. So how do we actually make sure we're not using too many resources, and then improving? Like, I don't think as a young person of today, I don't want to sustain how we currently operate as a humanity.
Yeah.
So I really want to make genuine improvements, and that is what all of our team are focused upon. So when we look at carbon reduction goals and everything like this, it's not about doing it to look good as a brand. This is not sustainability or environmentally friendliness is not our USP. It is a must-have. I see it just as important as our tax return. That is like, we have to do it as a business. So for me, I am very much like, that is my focus point.
And why do you think it's so important to be focused on it? As a business in general, why should it be a key focus as much as get you that return, right?
I think the first thing, and that where it kind of initially started, is being as efficient as possible enables you to be more sustainable. So the simple thing of, if you have a pair of trousers and they rip and you repair that pair of trousers, that is actually more efficient on resources. So therefore we should encourage customers to do that. And it saves us money because we're not having to replace a pair of trousers for that person, or the customer is not having to buy a new pair. So I think the first obvious example that I kind of came with was, when I started the brand, it was standard in the apparel industry to have a plastic bag in every garment. And this was just like a waste of plastic in my eyes. It didn't need to be there. So I saved 13p every product by getting rid of that plastic bag. There you have it. And that's more sustainable. I think sustainability should be good for bottom line and good for the planet. So that's why it's always been the fundamentals. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't want to make profit. I want to make profit, but I want to do that in a way of doing it that's better for the environment.
And so how do you start them building that into the design of the product? Obviously, one, getting the plastic and identifying the waste, but once you kind of get to a certain point, where does the improvements come from?
So one thing that we are really keen on is dyes. So firstly, 95% of our carbon and environmental impact is in our Scope 3, which is our manufacturing of products. So we are now, when we design, we look at how can we make it less impactful. So one thing is, when we dye yarn, we have to submerge all the reels into one big basin of dye. Now, if we can fill up the whole basin, as it were, we're not having to use so much dye and there's less waste. So we will make sure that when we're designing products in our ranges, that the colours overlap across multiple ranges. Not only does this bring the brand together, it's cheaper, and it's meaning we've got less wasted dye. So it's just thinking in a way of looking at the whole supply chain and ensuring that our whole team know the whole supply chain. So it comes into initially a point of communication. So everyone on our team should know where every product's made. And we also want to communicate that to the customer. So it soon will be legislation, but we use digital product passports, which will enable the customer and our team to see the whole chain. They'll see videos of every step of that supply chain process. So it's not just me looking and going, oh, look, why are they doing that, Tom? Someone in our team can go, why are they doing that? Why don't we combine that and it can make it cheaper and more sustainable? And that's kind of how we look at it in product design from a dye perspective. And the same then goes into offcuts. When we're cutting fabrics, we'll make sure that the actual patterns are orientated to minimize fabric waste, and that any fabric waste that we do have, we'll try and make into products. So kind of at the moment, we're trying to have a low, we used to say no waste, but there is some waste, and I can't sit here and say there's no waste, but very much a low waste manufacturing process.
And how much time and effort has to go into identifying these areas? So we talked about it a bit before. You've got lots going on in your business, especially when you're kind of early stage and you're balancing a lot, and this might just feel like another job to go and do. One, how time intensive is it? And if it is quite time intensive, what practical steps could you do or give to people to help them break this apart, to simplify it slightly, to give them the focus that they need?
I think this probably is really unhelpful, but you've really got to care about it. And if you don't care about it, don't say you're going to try and do it, because then it will seem like a job. To me, it doesn't seem like a job. Like it is it's one of the reasons that drives us forward. However, there was a few things that I would say is, as a founder, like we have a team of 11 and we have someone that is solely on ESG, and that is their sole responsibility. Most companies who have ESG leads have got people of like a staff of 100 plus people. So I allocate investment to it, firstly. It's not like a plus little thing on the side. I definitely recommend that. If you want to take it seriously, you've got to have someone responsible for it. Because even as a founder, I need someone to go and say to me, Tom, look, why aren't you doing that? Or say to me, do you really need to go and on travel to that supplier? Why don't you have a FaceTime? Because that's going to be X amount of carbon on that you might need to offset.
And how have you found breaking down kind of the carbon impact of your product? So I saw on the website, it says a really nice, 6 kilograms.
Yeah, very good memory. But yeah. It's like something like 16 cups of tea. I was like, oh, yeah, it's more than that.
How did you go around kind of breaking that down to understand the impact per product?
So it is based off averages initially. There's a website where you can put it in, and it will base off wherever the country of origin of cotton. So we use cotton from Pakistan at the moment across the most of our cotton products. So we'll calculate the average carbon required to grow cotton in Pakistan, and you'll get how much cotton. You will then calculate how much cotton is used for that specific garment, and then you'll divide the carbon by how much cotton is used, and then you do that for every single step. But this app does it, so it's quite helpful. And it is an average, but I always say to our team, like, you're never going to get carbon 100% spot on, but so long as you know where you are, you know that then you can reduce it, and you just breaking it down to the small steps, you can then look for opportunities of where you can reduce impact.
Yeah, that's exactly it. If you don't know where you are, how are you going to get any better at doing it? And obviously, you guys went on a journey with B Corp. Can you talk us through kind of what led you to decide that B Corp was the right accreditation for you guys? Just talk us through that B Corp journey you've been on.
I think going to the first question of why do we want to do B Corp is, as we grew as a business and the team grew, having some key audit KPIs was really important for me, because if I'm trying to grow, I didn't want to contradict myself. So I wanted to make sure I've got one central thing to stay focused on. And I just was intrigued. I was intrigued to see how hard it was to get, or how not hard it was to get. And I just wanted to challenge our team and challenge our processes, and enable us to dissect our supply chain and say, oh, this is what we need to improve on.
How hard was it? Was it a difficult accreditation to get?
I would have liked it to have been harder, but it has been great to highlight opportunities of where we can improve things. But I think also it does need to be achievable, because you need to be able to get people shooting for it. I also think things like B Corp and everything like that, it is more just about having the things to audit and building those structures into your company.
Yeah. Okay. So they kind of challenge you slightly to build in those ongoing kind of checks and balances to make sure that you are looking for continuous improvements for your supply chain, wherever it might be, in order of reducing the carbon of the product.
Mm-hmm. But I do think on that B Corp journey thing, and for people that we're actually releasing a whole YouTube video on how to get B Corp for a fashion brand. You do need to allocate resource to it. Like, if you want to get it, you have to look at it seriously. You can't just see it as like a badge you're going to stick on. You have to have it in the brand.
Cool. And how much do you think your genuine passion has come through into the brand perception? Or is it more of a personal passion that might not have gone into actually helping sell more product?
I think the sad reality is customers don't really care about sustainability. But I care about having a sustainable business and a business that lasts a long time. And I also like the idea of products that last ages and good quality. I don't think it helps sell more product. I think there may be the odd customer, but most people right now just want to buy something for the best price that looks nice and is cool. And, you look at if our generation, people are saying, oh, the Gen Zs are so sustainably focused. If we really cared, or the whole generation, you wouldn't see us all consuming loads of AI all the time and going to Mackey's and getting loads of...
Shein wouldn't be a thing.
Shein wouldn't be a thing. Like, I think price is a factor, so we've got to make sustainability cost effective.
Yeah. And how do you do that? Because traditionally, obviously, focusing on sustainability has sometimes led to kind of higher costs. Like, is it possible to compete on a sustainable way from a price level? Or is there other means in terms of, it commands a slightly higher price point, but it means you can do more good in the world for it? Like, is there a route to cost-effective sustainability, in your view?
I probably don't know enough on it yet. I haven't done enough research. Like for us, I don't think you should add cost to the consumer. It should just maybe add a little bit of cost to the business. But it's like a tax, right? We all have to pay tax. There's no point having a business if it's going to destroy the planet, because no matter how much profit you make, if we're not here, or we can't even breathe, or you can't even stand on land because it's all flooded, it's absolutely pointless. So I think you have to look much more long term. It's not just about enabling you to be able to drive a nice car or whatever. It's about looking long term.
So thanks for taking the time to talk to us, though. It's been a really interesting discussion, learning more about the journey. And actually, from starting at 14, so 10 years, that's a really unique journey for somebody to go on and have the business kind of here today. And reflecting back on that 10 years, kind of what's the key learnings that you've taken from it and that you'd want to share with other entrepreneurs, maybe starting out quite young, going on a similar journey to yourself?
I think the main learning that I've taken forward from it is don't be afraid of doing it. And especially at a young age, I always try and encourage more people to do it. At a young age, it's not as detrimental to restart again. I think when you get into your 30s, suddenly you may have a family or something like that, it's harder to start up again, if you fail. So don't be afraid. I know you see all this stuff. Don't be afraid to fail, but don't go out to fail. Failure is not cool. It's acceptable, but it's not cool. I think you see a lot of podcasts going, oh yeah, you just fail all the time. Don't. If you know it's going to fail, don't do it. But be willing to work, be willing to take the risk, and constantly take responsibility, and never get angry. That's the key, yeah.
Thanks so much. It's been a really great conversation. Thanks so much again for taking the time to come talk to us.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Simon, and
Cheers.
Thank you very much to J&J.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.